His tough-talking nature or lashing in public has divided opinion. To some, he is a rebel within. To others, he is an outspoken critic of the president and by extension, the Jubilee Party, a party he used as a political vehicle in the 2017 elections. Kiaru MP Ndindi Nyoro is our guest tonight on Spotlight. Good evening, I am Abubakar Abdullahi. Faith Cheptile is our sign language interpreter. But first, these are the stories making headlines tonight. I met Waruguru, not Waiguru. Raila Odinga says,
watu wa Kirinyaga wangetaka hii kesi ya Waiguru isikizwe na plenary ama whole house ya Senate.
As Kirinyaga MPs pile pressure for Senate plenary hearing, we will tell you the pain of private school teachers.
Ile sifa kama mwalimu au si kama una ule ubora kuwa mwalimu.
Many have now resulted to businesses after schools were closed. Court resumes tomorrow amidst a standoff between the judiciary and the executive. Good evening, TV47 Spotlight begins right now. ODM leader Raila Odinga has denied meeting embattled Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru to save her political career. ODM, however, through Suna East MP Mohamed Junaid Mohamed, has said that the party will save Waiguru amidst pressure on Senate to hold a plenary hearing as opposed to 11-member select committee. Senate is set to debate Waiguru motion on Tuesday.
The ODM party leader Raila Odinga says he never met the impeached Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru as had been reported. In a statement, Odinga says he only met Laikipia woman representative Catherine Warogoro and not Waiguru. Reports indicated that Odinga met Waiguru at a city hotel to save her political career. He further states that he doesn't have the powers to influence senators to save her.
Even if it was there or not there, the reality is Raila plays a big role when it comes to whipping senators and even members of the National Assembly on issues of interest to him or to his friends. So I would not be surprised if that meeting is going to happen or might happen or a discussion of that nature will happen.
Meanwhile, Kirinyaga members of parliament have piled pressure on Senate to hold a plenary session to discuss the fate of the governor. The members of parliament have questioned the credibility of an 11-member select committee.
Wapewe nafasi ya kusikizwa maneno yao kusikizwa katika plenary. Hii maneno ya select committee wanashuku kwamba haiwezi ikawapatia haki ile wanataka.
Wale watu ambao wanaleta siasa za kuingilia watu binafsi kama wako kwa serikali ama nje achane na hizo siasa na waache Senate ifanye kazi yao.
Hii kesi ya Waiguru isikizwe na plenary ama whole house ya Senate, diposa kesi yake ikatwe na waone haki imetendeka.
Senate meets on Tuesday to discuss how the matter will be handled. House Business Committee is already proposing an 11-member committee.
The problem is when 6 of those can make a decision that will bind all the others, 61 others, the whole Senate, then that worries them. And if it worries them, then as Kenyans we should be extremely worried.
The Jubilee Party says it has left the matter before senators.
So we are watching with interest as well.
Intense political lobbying is already taking place to save Governor Waiguru, who was impeached by the Kirinyaga County Assembly. Waiguru is accused of violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, and gross misconduct. Andreen Kilemi, reporting for TV47.
Elsewhere, a section of Luhya leaders have now started tours to the region to consolidate the Luhya unity. Seasoned politician Noah Wekesa, Governors Wycliffe Oparanya and Sospita Ojamong, and Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa have been crisscrossing the region amidst Ford Kenya and ANC wrangles. Meanwhile, local leaders are calling for a united Luhya political party that will steer the region to the 2022 polls.
Nikiwa mjumbe, nikiwa waziri, niliita viongozi wa Luhya waje kwa boma langu. Tusungumuze mambo ya unity. Watu 7 peke yake walikuja. Watu 7 instead ya watu 16. Mimi niko tayari kwenda. Tutafute wazee wengine, twende tukae na hawa, tuwaambie ya kwamba serikali imeanza kuundwa sasa.
Tufanye na rais, tufanye na Raila, tufanye na mawaziri hao. Kwa hivyo ndio tumekuja kuzungumzia nyinyi, si ati tunakuja kuonga muda hapana, tunakuja kuzungumzia nyinyi kusema hapana. Kama viongozi wenu lazima tupate mwelekeo. Sio kibinafsi, lakini jamii yote ifanye nini? Ifaidike.
Wakati mimi nilikuwa waziri, tulikuwa mawaziri 9 kutoka upande huu. 9. Saa ile nusu mkati. Upande wa Raila tulikuwa 6. Upande wa Kibaki tulikuwa 3. Saa hii tuko na mmoja peke yake. Na tunaendelea kukaa hapa, tunakaa, atu vitu itatoka mbinguni sikufikie sisi. Atu tunangojea. Hatuwezi. Hii ni wakati wetu. Sijui nitakuwa kwa siasa ya miaka ngapi.
Mambo ya vyama kusema sisi ni wa ANC, sisi wa Ford Kenya, sijui sisi wa ODM ama NASA ama Jubilee, mambo hayo yalikwisha wakati huo. Sasa sisi sote tuko chini ya serikali moja ya Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta. Sio serikali ya Jubilee, ni serikali ya Kenya na serikali ya Wakenya wote.
Meanwhile, President Uhuru Kenyatta is likely to make his long-awaited visit to his central Kenya backyard next month. Recent tours in the region have been termed as preparing the way for the Messiah. The 5 billion Kenya shillings rehabilitation of the Nairobi-Nyanyuki Railway, inspection of construction of the Mau Road are among the recent activities. And as Moige William now reports, the counties of Murang'a and Nyeri have received 3 cabinet secretaries inspecting development projects that the president is said and set to be launching.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is set to tour Mount Kenya region to inspect development projects in the region. And in what appears a well-orchestrated move, cabinet secretaries making visit to central Kenya counties while inspecting projects. On Thursday, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya toured Murang'a and Kirinyaga counties before touring Embu County on Friday. Munya later toured his home county of Meru, and in all these meetings citing that President Uhuru Kenyatta was fully behind revival of the coffee sector.
President yako mbele kwa hii mambo. Anataka turekebishe kahawa, turekebishe majani chai, mambo ya maziwa tulirekebisha. Cotton, nasikia kuna mtu anasema already tumeanza hiyo harakati pia ya cotton. Cotton growing areas to come back. We already raising money actually.
James Masharia, in charge of transport on Friday, toured Murang'a and Nyeri counties and was keen to know that the president was keen to launch the key electioneering promise to his backyard.
Miaka miwili Mungu akitujalia. Kwa hivyo ni lazima ile ahadi tulipatia watu wetu wa Kenya tumalize hiyo ahadi. Ile ahadi rais Kenyatta ametoa tuna miaka miwili. Kwa hivyo hii mambo ya kusema sisi hatuwezi kurudi nyuma.
Meanwhile, Water and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki has also been hitting the ground running, making tours inspecting projects worth millions across the region. Mulika Irrigation Project in Mugoiri, which has been allocated 253 million, also visiting the Northern Water Tunnel. In Nyeri County, earlier today held CS Mutahi Kagwe pointed that President Uhuru Kenyatta will open Othaya Level 5 Hospital.
President wa Republic President Uhuru Kenyatta ni mwaga ideka aurathi muturio haha amugeithia na njera ndimwire ni aguka thibitari ino we ni wogoka kuhingura thibitari ino.
Earlier, Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho made a visit to his home county Kirinyaga, visiting the 15 billion Kemri station with the water PS Joseph Irongo, visiting the 20 billion Wadhiba Dam with the contractor instructed to hasten completion of the dam which had stalled. President Uhuru Kenyatta had promised to kick off his tour starting this January, but it never happened, with all indicators now showing the president is planning to fulfill his words. Mwege William, TV47.
Moving on, the judiciary is reopening tomorrow amidst a standoff with the executive and a backlog of cases. The judiciary has already outlined protocols to be followed once it resumes its operations. Zablon Masharia reports.
Among the protocols outlined by judiciary includes promotion of social distancing as directed by the Ministry of Health. The number of people in any court session will also be limited to avoid crowding the courts. The judiciary will also prioritize cases whose hearing were affected by scaling down of court operations. The judiciary has advised all parties and their advocates to wait to be contacted by courts for civil cases. However, for criminal cases, the accused person will wait to be summoned to court through the Office of Director of Public Prosecution and the police. The standoff has been sparked by President Uhuru Kenyatta's failure to appoint 41 judges, Chief Justice David Maraga accusing him of violating the law and the court orders.
It is important that Kenyans understand that even as the courts begin to upscale operations to include in-person operations, they will find extremely congested court diaries and dockets.
Land and Environment Court has a backlog of 16,457 cases with only 31 judges. The Court of Appeal is currently faced with a backlog of 7,315 cases with only 15 judges countrywide. At the Labour and Relation Court, there's a backlog of 13,197 cases in which 12 judges are expected to handle. The courts were closed due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, with limited cases being handled. Zablon Masharia, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Zablon Masharia, for that report. Remember, you are watching TV47 Spotlight. You can be part of this discussion and this broadcast. Send us a message on 22047. Call us on the number on your screen. Use the hashtag TV47 Spotlight. Let's get to our quick chat interview. My guest tonight, as earlier mentioned, is Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, who joins us now on the broadcast. Mheshimiwa, good evening. Thank you for making time for us this evening.
Thank you very much. I can hear you. Thank you very much.
All right, Mheshimiwa, let me start with you. You are the Member of Parliament of Kiharu, courtesy of the people of Kiharu, but as well courtesy of your party, the Jubilee Party, which has formed the Jubilee government. But your public utterings, if not wordings, seem as though you are in an opposition, not a party that has formed a government.
I don't know where that is coming from, because as you rightly put it, I'm Member of Parliament for Kiharu constituency, and of course I was elected on the Jubilee ticket. But I also have to say that the first obligation any leader has, of course, is to the people, because ultimately the role of leadership is not just to be a member of a party. The primary role of any leader is, of course, to lead the people to a better future. And I think that is why I concentrate most of my time, and that is what I do most of the time.
We quote, the people whom we represent are really bitter because they know Uhuru has failed. Are you indicting your party leader, the President of the Republic of Kenya, of failure?
Not necessarily. Uhuru has done, I have always said this before, that every dispensation comes with its own policies, and every leader has their own legacies. For example, if you, I will give you several examples. One being a country like China. There was somebody who was called Mao Zedong, who was the chairman of the Communist Party of China. His legacy was that of uniting the Chinese. He didn't do very well economically through his two policies. That one was called Cultural Revolution, The other one was called Great Leap Forward. He didn't do very well economically, but his legacy is based in uniting the Chinese people. His successor was called Deng Xiaoping. He is remembered being the person who made the Chinese people great. Coming back home, and actually before we come back home, let me give you another example of South Korea. There was a president, the founding father, who was called General Park Hyuk-see. And that General Park is remembered for his role in transforming South Korea from a poor, small country into the current global economic behemoth that we know now. Coming back home, President Kibaki is remembered for putting money in the pockets of Kenyans. He did very well in enterprise, and that is why actually most people remember him. President Kenyatta has done very well when it comes to infrastructure. We have now the railway, we have many roads, built more roads than any other president in the history of Kenya. He has done very well in electrification.
Which begs the question, when you talk of the failure, are you being selective with the failure?
No, I was just almost through with my point. When we talk about President Uhuru Kenyatta, definitely he will be remembered in terms of laying a very solid foundation, in terms of infrastructure, and of course in terms of the wherewithal, what is needed to grow an economy. Probably where there is a problem, a policy problem, is why are all these infrastructural projects not translating into wealth in the pocket of Kenyans? Maybe the model on how we finance these projects, maybe we need to change to have an overhaul in terms of our economic, macroeconomic policies, because clearly, as much as we are growing in terms of infrastructure, we are also descending in terms of wealth, we are also descending in terms of Kenyans relying on themselves, relying on their businesses. Businesses are beaten and they are at a low.
All right, Mheshimiwa, if one is to look at your public statements from political be-it rallies or even addresses to the media, one may easily say that tonight you sound a little bit different, which begs the question, is there any political U-turn that you have made?
No. You know, I am only responsible of what I say, not on how it gets interpreted.
But in many occasions you have said
a lie 1,000 times, but it never turns out to be facts. The fact of the matter.
All right, go ahead.
Yes?
No, I'm saying in many instances you have said things that didn't sit well with the executive.
That's why I have given different scenarios of the... Like which one?
When you say the president, for instance, the people whom we represent are really bitter because they know Uhuru has failed.
Probably, you know, there are so in this era of social media, there are so many accounts, and like for example, I have more than 10 parody accounts, which I don't know who operates. But of course, I am one of the people who don't shy away from giving positive criticism. And of course, by giving positive criticism, it is always fair for you to start from what is good, so that you're not just ranting. The fact of the matter is that we can count the kilometers of roads done. We can count the number of transformers installed. That I give it to President Kenyatta. But I also start with what I always say, that when it comes to translating all that to general happiness, translating all that to wealth in the pocket of Kenyans, I can tell you, Kenyans are worse off. Why do I say so? If you go, for example, to any daily newspaper, including tomorrow on Monday, you realize that over 10 pages listed there are auctioneers, auctioning people who were previously doing very well in business. And of course, when... Excuse me, hello?
Yes, Your Honor, Mheshimiwa, go on.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Please, I'm hearing myself. For my coordination, kindly work on that side. But what I was saying is that when it comes to putting wealth in the pocket of Kenyans, possibly we need to change a few things. We may be doing very well in terms of infrastructure, and that, of course, you cannot take it away from this Jubilee government. But definitely, when you sample Kenyans, people who are doing very well in business during the Kibaki era, for example, those are the same people who are listed by auctioneers every single day. So what I'm saying is that it may not necessarily be a failure, because on one side, we are doing very well in terms of infrastructure, but we need policy changes so that all these infrastructural projects can translate into money in the pocket of Kenyans. And as I wind up that point, there is something in economics called multiplier effect. And how it works, I'll give an example to the Kenyan scenario. When we built the Thika Road Superhighway, when we built the Eastern Bypass, we had many towns cropping up. We had many businesses coming up along those infrastructural developments. Ask yourself why there is not even a single kiosk along the railway. The railway is okay, we have invested in it. But I think in the mix on how we implement this project, we lack something that spurs the economy. And possibly it's because of our financing program, where, for example, in terms of railway, we got design done by the Chinese, we got construction done by the Chinese, we got a loan from the Chinese banks, they paid in China. So meaning, it's like we bought this railway from a supermarket. So I mean, you attribute to the people who are in charge of infrastructure. For example, C.S. Machari, doing excellent.
Is not
but
a total
in
failure.
the business of treasury, knowing on the mix.
All right, Mheshimiwa, let me ask you this. You have answered my question.
It's not a total failure. It's actually just airing our...
Point made. Yeah. Point gotten. Let's move on to other issues that I intend us to discuss in this discussion as well. Let's talk of the disquiet in your own party, the Jubilee Party, for this matter. When you say the genesis of this problem is the handshake, there are people you greet and immediately you lose your balance and start feeling dizzy. From the moment Uhuru greeted Raila, he has not been the same. Are you tonight saying that the disquiet and the upheavals, politically at least in Jubilee, is courtesy of Raila Odinga?
Yes, of course. Jubilee as a house and as a party, we were doing very well before the handshake. Unity was unity that only other parties could learn from. But of course, in my understanding or speculation, is that when Raila Odinga, of course, came for the handshake, he had his plan all through. It was well planned. For him, he knew what he was up to. And to know what he was up to, you just have to look at his history, how he has dealt with political parties in the past, how he has dealt with convenient friends in the past. And if you check, for example, how he, from earlier from Ford, Kenya, coming all the way to NASA, and now currently the handshake with Jubilee, you clearly see a person who is very centered on achieving his political aims. And he has done very well in that. I have to commend him, because he has successfully brought a lot of thunders and storms in our Jubilee Party. And I don't think this is coincidental. This is something he had planned, and I attribute what is happening in our Jubilee Party to that.
All right, let me interject you at that point, Mheshimiwa, and ask you this question then. If your party leader says he got into this handshake for purposes of national unity, and you say this handshake is the genesis of the problem within Jubilee Party, isn't that not in contradiction of your party leader?
The best way to judge anything is by results. You may give all manner of explanation, but the results speak for themselves. And the result is that if we came together for the sake of Kenyans, Kenyans are not better off, economically or otherwise. If we came together to heal the country and to build bridges, we have broken more bridges than we have built. There is only one very clear product we have gotten from this handshake, And that product and that fruit, which is rotten, is of course the breakdown of our Jubilee Party and the disjointed government that we currently have. We cannot continue lying to Kenyans. I mean, we can see for ourselves. The body language is out there. We can see the pronouncements. Clearly, this is not the Jubilee Party that was there in the first term.
All right, Mheshimiwa, I understand we are out of time and you have other media engagements after this. Nonetheless, let me ask you this one question. I was going through your official Twitter account, a picture you posted yesterday with the caption, "The Hustler Nation, we are African and Africa is our business." That picture has the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, which begs the question, do you believe that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, a man who has served in public offices for more than 20 years now, is a hustler first?
Of course he's a hustler, unless you don't know the meaning of the word hustler.
I know the meaning of the word hustler, but for someone to the caliber of the Deputy President, you believe he's a hustler?
Yeah.
And in your own view, which nation does the President come from?
A hustler, to my understanding, is a person. In my understanding, the tag hustler depicts somebody who has made it from thick and thin. You've come from so far, and I think that is the real definition of a hustler. Myself, I'm one. I used to make other students' shoes in high school. I used to burn charcoal. Our Deputy President used to sell chicken. He has done all manner of things that any hustler out there is doing. So, clearly...
all right, and since you have classified yourself... Since you have classified yourself and the Deputy President, which nation does the President come from?
The President.
Yes.
You mean the President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Yes, since you have said you are also a hustler, the Deputy President is a hustler, I'm asking, could you be having an idea of which nation the President is from? Is he also a hustler?
I don't know. I mean, you, for example, you are a journalist. You may come from a journalist nation. We are hustlers. We can call ourselves hustler nation. But ultimately, all of us are Kenyans. Maybe the nation the President comes from is Kenya, like all of us.
All right, Mheshimiwa, thank you once again for making time for us here on TV47 Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Kiaru, Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, of course, talking to us live on Spotlight, making sense of course, the handshake and his political stance in as far as his wordings and his statements publicly or even in his social verified account are concerned. Nonetheless, I understand we need to take a short break. We still have a lot lined up for you. We'll be back with more news after this break. Welcome back. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. Moving on. The country has recorded 137 new COVID-19 cases today, bringing the total number of cases to 3,594. There are 32 new recoveries recorded today and 3 deaths, bringing the total number of fatalities to 103. The Ministry of Health recorded 92 cases in Nairobi, 16 in Mombasa, 15 in Kajiado, and 4 of the cases in Busia and Kiambu each. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has said that the people who die of COVID-19 should not be buried at night. A number of victims have been buried at night, sparking protest among locals, particularly in the western region of the country. The government has also expressed concern over increasing number of non-communicable diseases among Kenyans. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, while speaking in a meeting that never observed social distancing, has also warned leaders against meeting during the COVID-19 pandemic period.
I'm concerned that close to 24% of our population is living with high blood pressure, while 5% have high blood glucose. It is equally unacceptable that over 47,000 new cases of cancer are diagnosed and 32,000 patients die of cancer each year. My ministry is aware that the magnitude of NCD's situation in this country and the prioritize prevention and control of non-communicable diseases in Kenya in our health policy 2014-2030.
So once the body is prepared and is double packed in a body bag, the body is relatively safe. If you look at the transmission of COVID-19, unlike other infections, there's very little likelihood that if the body is treated well, you stand a chance of getting infected, compared to conditions like viral hemorrhagic fevers, like Ebola or Marburg. So as long as the body has been taken care of by our public health officers, the body is safe. Therefore, what we need to put in place is to be cognizant of our cultural practices. If the culture dictates that we don't bury at night, please just hold on for another 12 hours so that we're able to bury the following day. But really, we are going to work again to send an alert to the counties to remind them of this protocol so that we have a dignified burial of those who succumb to COVID.
Now, a large number of private school teachers have lost their jobs due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. More than 70,000 teachers employed by school boards of management and private schools now live at the mercy of well-wishers. Our reporter Andrin Kilemi spent a day with some of the private school teachers, and she tells us the story of the pain of private school teachers.
Derek Mudasia walks through this narrow lane to what routinely would have been a way to his house. Armed with a key, he would access his one-room house, but to his surprise, the house is locked. There is no entry today. Few of his belongings lay outside the house. The house he once called home has a new tenant.
Pato langu limeisha.
Derek, a history and Swahili teacher in one of the private schools in Nairobi, has been forced to pitch camp at his friend's house. For 3 months now, Derek hasn't been paying his monthly rent of 6,500 shillings. His belongings have been stashed here and will remain in this small room until he clears his debt that has accumulated to 19,500 shillings. Mudasia's biggest headache, however, is on how to clear the debt that now stares at him.
Sijui lile deni nitalipa vipi kwa sababu napata kwamba ni miezi mitatu na vile vitu pengine atasema kwamba bado nimekuwekea kwamba fanya nini? Lazima ulipe ada ya kukuwekea. Utapata ya kwamba nimeweka kwa rafiki yangu ambaye ameniweka pale kwake kwa zile tu huruma zake. Unapata kwamba ile sifa kama mwalimu au si kama una ule ubora kuwa mwalimu.
It is equally the same for Melda Anyango. Anyango, a mother of 3, decided to sell vegetables just outside her neighborhood to make ends meet.
Like me, sasa ilinipata ka niko na loan, Branch International. They have been asking for this loan, but I'm not in a position to pay it. So imeni affect sana, nyumba kulipa ni ngumu. So ile nilikopa tena kando ili nianze nayo hii biashara. Tena biashara pia imekuwa chini kwa sababu watu pia wameogopa.
In a good day, Anyango says she is able to make between 150 to 200 shillings.
Niko na watoto wanahitaji kukula na baba yao pia alifungiwa nje ya Nairobi na yeye pia hana kazi, ni vibarua tu. Sasa hatuna njia nyingine ya kujisaidia.
The situation is not different for Dan Simiu, a primary school teacher in one of the private schools in Ngando, a village that is part of the larger Dagoretti slum in Nairobi. This evening walks for him are refreshing and have become part of his new normal. He has until the end of the week to pay his 3 months rent or remove his belongings from the house.
Nikikaa hivi wakati mwingine nikitembea, maybe tu niitiwe chakula na jirani. Kwa hii plot kuna majirani ambao ninafunza watoto wao kule kwa hiyo shule. Wale ambao umewao at least wanatoka kidogo wanaenda kazi. So wale wazazi ndio wale ambao watakuja watume watoto waniletee chakula. Waniulize kama nina chakula na kama sina watatuma watoto. Na si kila siku kwa sababu mzazi anajua wewe si mtoto wake, si kila siku. Wakati mwingine kama hajakuletea chakula itabidi ukae ulale hivyo.
These teachers have no choice but to remain patient and hopeful. However, some of the colleagues have been hard hit by the COVID-19 hit and opted to quit. Jen Wairimu, not her real name, is one of those who gave up on the teaching profession. She sought a living elsewhere now that chalk and boards have been paused.
At 6:30 actually, nilikuwa nafaa kwa class nikifunza maths either form 3 na form 4. And then the worst of it was there was nothing, hakukuwa na any additional salary or anything. And then you have very many classes, like workload yangu ilikuwa 31 lessons per week, which is inakustrain ile excess. So tulikuwa tunaambiwa most of the time kwa meetings na director, unaambiwa you are there to be heard, no, you are there to be seen, not to be heard. Like unaona, in such a situation, hata ukiwa frustrated, you cannot speak out.
The COVID-19 outbreak has not only affected several businesses in the country, it has also put the lives of masses at risk, and private school teachers are no exception. Andrine Kilemi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Andrine Kilemi, for that report. Indeed, the bitter bites of COVID-19 are biting private school teachers. Elsewhere, fuel prices have had mixed reviews in this month's review by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Petrol went up by 5 shillings and 77 cents a litre, while diesel cost fell by 3 shillings and 80 cents. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority says the changes have been attributed to the price changes on imports across May. Now, residents and business owners in Limuru town are decrying restriction of movement into and out of the area, citing several police roadblocks, overseeing who enters and leaves the town. According to them, this has made their lives difficult, despite Limuru being listed under areas in the Nairobi metropolitan area. Mwangi Maina tells us more.
This is what you will find if you want to enter or leave Limuru town. Roadblocks and roadblocks from the police. This has not augured well with the residents who now say they are counting losses due to the difficulties in conducting businesses.
At the moment we have about 8 roadblocks which are blocking Limuru town from the rest of the world. We have one at Mutarakwa, one here at Tironi, the other one at Aprans, the other one at Sasini, on your way to Kiambu, the other one at Kentimea, the other one at Kabuko.
A majority say the many roadblocks erected in the area are unnecessary since the area is not a COVID-19 hotspot.
Ukienda na matatu utaenda ukishuka pikipiki inalipisha expensive. Inaona afadhali kukatisha shughuli.
Matatu operators have decried mistreatment as commuters are allowed to cross over on foot as vehicles are denied entry or exit into the area.
Magari corona ama ni mwanadamu. Sababu kama ni mwanadamu yagezuiliwa, lakini sasa magari inapita na watu bado wanaenda Buhungu.
Wanashukishwa hapa, gari zinapita Panya route, wanachukuliwa hapo mbele. Kwa hivyo hakuna kitu wamezuia.
Even those seeking medical treatment have not been spared since the Tigoni hospital, which mostly rely on, was turned into a COVID-19 isolation center.
Fanya hesabu ya matatu. Limuru iko na matatu 200 ambazo nabeba Nairobi Limuru kila siku. Sasa swali langu ni, kila siku Limuru kunaenda Nairobi watu zaidi ya 6,000. Hao watu wakikosa kupita hapa, it means watu 6,000 watapoteza makazi.
The residents have called on their local leaders to intervene in solving what has now become a problem to the dwellers of Limuru. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
More than 60% of blood donated in the country is from learning institutions. And with schools closed, the number of blood units donated has reduced, with only few Kenyans opting to donate blood voluntarily. Calvin Chitwa tells us more.
According to the Kenya Red Cross, the projected need of 1 million units per year in Kenya, as per the World Health Organization projection, is far from being achieved. Red Cross says every 10 minutes, someone needs blood. The country has been depending highly on schools for blood donations, and with the schools closed, the numbers have gone down. The Ministry of Health has been conducting a blood donation drive in Nairobi and Mombasa.
Blood is a product that is collected voluntarily. So we need to come out voluntarily and give out that blood.
At the North Rift Blood Bank in Eldoret, we met a group of young volunteers from Kenya Red Cross who came to donate blood and celebrate two of their colleagues who have made it a routine to donate blood annually. One of their heroes is Joseph Wanjiru, who has donated blood for 23 times, and Lewis Sawe, who has donated for 14 times. They say since they started donating blood, they have never experienced any health complication, and encourage young people to donate blood regularly.
First time to donate was back in 2014. I was just 20 years. I've been doing it regularly, 4 times a year. We will continue donating until the age of 65.
You take around 450 millimeters of blood from your body. Very minimal compared to the normal blood in your body, which is around 6 to 8 liters of blood.
They are among the few Kenyans who regularly volunteer to donate blood, and they said most people fear donating blood because of myths. Festus Koech, Eldoret Regional Blood Transfusion Center Deputy Manager, says they used to receive 200 units of blood a day, but currently they are doing 50 units, which is not enough to sustain the needs of the region.
So the figure that we are collecting is hardly sufficient to cover even a third of our services.
And we are taking a lead from the youth of Uasin Gishu, Kenya Red Cross, because they are trying to lead and they are also going around mobilizing people to come and donate.
The government says it has increased personnel to the National Blood Transfusion Center to boost its operations, in addition to setting aside 1 billion shillings through a World Bank program to upgrade blood collection throughout the country. Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Uasin Gishu County.
Elsewhere, mistrust between security agents and residents of Qorof Harer in Wajir County has been cited as one of the biggest challenges in fighting insecurity. Isadin Haji paints a picture of a town that locals fear sharing information with the police for fear of victimization.
More than 70 kilometers east of Wajir town is Qorof Harar, a division about 20 kilometers off Kenya-Somali border. A town visibly ready to face any terror insurgency. The worry about similar past attacks clear on residents' faces, and the fear of danger lurking in darkness hangs over this town. We will go right now. Just days ago, residents say a known businessman named Gedi Abdi was picked by security forces in Karsa location. Authorities suspect the local businessman of having a hand in terror activities.
Someone who is always available, working with the government, always available, is a businessman. Everybody knows. And all the others, detainees, have been detained outside the law for 5 days without knowing where they are about.
This is the home of the missing businessman. A known number of armed men claimed to be from the security actors stormed this compound in the middle of the night. The trail of destruction left behind, clearly visible, and the mother of the house still looks confused and shaken about the night's occurrence.
They knocked my door and I opened. They pointed guns at me and asked me to get out. They came inside the house searching all through. Others were within the compound waiting.
She recorded a statement at the police station on what transpired, and now with an OB number for the case. It's 5 days since her husband was taken, and there's no explanation of the whereabouts of her husband. The residents here claim that this is not the first occurrence of police brutality and use of excessive force. They also say that they support efforts to flush out terror cells, but through the right channel, in the event that anyone is suspected.
So it's out of corruption, out of petty politics here that is being laced with the security issue. When you are, forcefully evicting them, when you are forcefully, taking their properties, they get intimidated. I don't think whether the war against Al-Shabaab will be won in that manner.
One of the old men in the town claims that the owner of this house was an honest businessman. They say that Gedi was summoned by anti-terror police for investigations in the past and later proven innocent.
Hati ambaye alisemekana anahitajika kwa fununu ya kusemekana kwamba ametoa hii mali wapi. Nilipopatiwa ripoti mimi mwenyewe nilimpeleka mara mbili katika anti-terror, ofisi ya anti-terror. Muda ya miezi mitatu kama mwaka mmoja iliyopita, mzee alichunguzwa hata baka rekodi yake iko katika ofisi na aliambiwa hana dhambi ajifanyie kazi.
The mutual mistrust between the locals and authorities poses a challenge in combating terror at this border town. This coexistence might be defied in one way or another, but the reality of living in peace and a terror-free environment is yet to be achieved. Isadin Haji, TV47, Orof Division, Wajir County.
Thank you, Isadin Haji, for that report. Elsewhere, the government is now calling on parents to be at the forefront in ensuring the safety of their children once they resume schools in September. Mwangi Maina tells us why.
Speaking at Kakamega Primary School, where he had gone to inspect schools' preparedness as plans to resume schools in September, Education CS Magoha has called on parents to support the government in its efforts to ensure the safety of their children once schools reopen.
The government is thinking of producing 2 masks which are washable per child. Do you get the point? But those of you who can afford to buy more masks for their children or grandchildren will do if you love them. Don't start making noise when they are not there.
Magoha has promised that the government will distribute water tanks to schools that do not have, as well as sanitizers, to ensure students stay safe at school.
The government shall ensure that those schools have water tanks. But you have heard me encouraging the MPs to do the same. If they do the same, then it releases the money that the government has to help us to ensure that each school has sanitizers. If there's any school that doesn't have enough toilets, it gives us the opportunity to divert that money to improving the toilets. Let's work together on this issue. It's not a question of government doing and we sitting.
Meanwhile, a poll results released by Infotrack Research Company shows that 70% of Kenyans are opposed to the idea of reopening schools, citing a likely spike in infections rates among children and high chances of the children contracting the virus. 30% of Kenyans want schools reopened, while 59% of Kenyans want the places of worship opened. 41% of Kenyans are of the contrary opinion. 65% of those who want the places of worship opened live in urban areas, while 57% live in rural areas. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mwangi Maina, for that report. It's almost 50 minutes past the hour. Time for us to take a short break. We'll be back with sports news after this break. Welcome back. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. Let's get to the world of sports now. AFC Leopards will be seeking to win the Kenya Premier League title next season when football resumes. And as Julius Juma now reports, Leopards have not lifted the KPL title in over 2 decades.
It is 22 years and counting since the Kenyan Premier League title found itself at the den. Ingwe losing their cutting edge over the years, with this pair sitting in among their fans who have always been on the receiving end when coming head-to-head with opposing fans, notably in the famed Mashemeji Derby against perennial rivals Gor Mahia, who have since taken the Kenyan top tier by storm. But after a year at the helm of the club, Chairman Dan Shikanda has sounded a warning to Premier League rivals. Ingwe is going for the KPL gong next season.
I can tell our fans, be ready for an interesting season. A season whereby you'll be confident of your team fighting for the championship.
We give our team the support they require so that at the end of this season, we lift the trophy once again and we get the respect that we deserve.
The club intends to romp in experienced manpower to aid their hunt as optimism starts trickling in.
We want to go forward and strengthen our team. We realized the team was a bit youthful. We want to mature it so that we make sure that once we mature the team, we can go directly and challenge for the title. So we are looking forward to bring at least 3 to 5 experienced players to mix them, to blend them with the youthful players we have.
Fan hooliganism has perennially been synonymous to FC Leopards, a situation that has got them slapped with heavy fines and banned from multiple stadia, among them Kasarani. But as offers Dan Shikanda, there is now water under the bridge.
This year, I can say, without fear of any contradiction, we have not had cases of hooliganism. Our matches have been played to the end, and even when the referees have at times not been at their best, we have seen our fans, because the hope that NEC has given them, the management has given them, our fans have actually accepted results and actually walked away.
Before the 2019-2020 Kenyan Premier League season was halted owing to the coronavirus pandemic, Ingwe was 6th with a 40-point return from 23 matches, 14 points, share of leaders Gor Mahia. Reporting for TV47, I'm Julius Juma.
And finally, Atletico Madrid